Hey, welcome back to Flesh and Blood Brothers. This is Tommy here with a nice little deck tech overview of a budget Dromai list. So if you're new to FAB, maybe you have a couple Blitz decks from Uprising, this is one way to kind of upgrade that Blitz deck and start competing at your local armory. So let's dive in. Here's the list. I'll make sure this link to FabDB is in the comments or in the description too. You can see a little bit of an overview here. This is very much a little baby dragon swarm list. So at first, when I had this in a more robust classic constructed version, I only had 3 dragons in the deck. When I changed this to make it more of a budget-friendly list, I actually added a dragon, an Asvalai. But we'll go through the list and we'll kind of see some things about the deck. But I hope that you get a better understanding of playing Dromai with this. Excuse me. And get a deck that will cost you, maybe $20 if you're just buying the singles, maybe less when it's all said and done. If we're just upgrading her Blitz deck, her prepackaged Blitz deck, it'll be even cheaper. So let's kind of go. So now let's go ahead and start going through the list here. All right, so of course we're going to have our standard weapon. Here's our hero card, and we're talking about dragons. We're talking about Aether Ashwings all day here. So if you don't know much about Dromai Ash Artist, she's going to have her Storm of Sandakai weapon. It is two-handed, so you're not going to have any other weapon with the list. And it's really going to pair into her hero power. So all the dragon allies that you control have once per turn cost 0. So its initial cost is 0. That cost can be increased by something like a Frostbite token, though. So it costs nothing if there's no other things going on to attack. And all the different dragons have a different attack value. So with Dromai, whenever you pitch a red card, you create an Ash token. You have to use the Ash to create the dragon allies. And if you've played a red card this turn, dragons you control have go again while attacking. So if you have a bunch of dragons allies in play and you've played a red card, all those dragons have go again. So that's how you can attack many, many times with all your little Ashwing buddies. And of course, you can see the most common dragon you'll have in play is the standard token dragon, or an Aether Ashwing. So she's an illusionist, so she's using her magic, her Aether-inspired magic, to turn the Ash of Volkor into an embodied little Ash Dragon. Very exciting stuff. Now we're going to talk about the equipment. So again, this is a budget list, so we have budget equipment. So you can see here we have 2 sections on the left side of the screen here. Big boy defenses. So the full suite of Ironhide armor. This is kind of fun with Dromai, honestly, because when you're pitching a card to get the +2 defense once per game, of course, you can pitch a red card and gain an Ash. So that's going to be important. It's also great to have these on board to stop some devastating attacks from Guardians and other hit effect options from even somebody like a Briar. I usually hang on to my Ironhides until I'm hit with something like a Terra Sunder powered Guardian attack or some really devastating crush effect. But you also are going to want to include your utility pieces against a lot of different opponents. So at the top, you see Silent Stilettos in Silken form, both from Uprising. So if you've primarily only opened Uprising, you're going to have these already. All these other pieces are very, very cheap to buy as singles. If you're around a lot of veteran players, they'll probably give you these cards for free because they're commons. Deep Blue is great to have around. It's going to be used once per game to basically turn any card in your hand into 3 resources. It has to be on your turn. And so this is great for when you want to play Necria, but you still have like a full red hand. You can just Deep Blue, play Necria, and still have 3 other cards in your hand to work with. All right, budget Majestics. Here we go. Now, only 99 cents on TCG Player each. Burn them all. So this is great. You want to pitch this early if you see it too early. But by the middle of the game or at the late stage of the game against somebody like an Oldhim, you really want to get these onto the field. The more the merrier at that point in the game to push arcane damage, and that's what I meant by mixed damage here every turn. And so even if you're going against Oldhim and they're popping that first dragon attack every single turn, if 1 to 3 burn the mauls out, it's still that guaranteed little push of damage to really help seal the deal. Now, 95 cents on TCG Player each is Thaw. So this is one of the very first, well, it was the first Draconic card ever seen by the player base. Thaw is great against Icelander. Okay, so you don't want Icelander to set up this huge like Frost Hex board state where she's just punishing you turn after turn for those leftover Frostbite tokens. So you want to have this around. You can get into your discard pile by either blocking or playing it as an attack, and then using its effect to banish itself to destroy a Frostbite, destroy a Frost Hex, or unfreeze an ally if she has frozen one of your allies. So that's really strong. I would also play it in the mirror to be able to break dragons. Coming in at 35 cents each on TCG Player is Tome of Firebrand. So again, these are Majestic rares. So even if you've opened up a box of Uprising, or maybe 2, you might only have 1 or 2 copies of this card laying around, if any. And so pick up some extra pieces and you're on your way for this budget deck. Now, Tome allows us to maintain momentum on a turn when we can attack with multiple Ash Wings. So getting up to 4 Draconic Chain Links isn't that hard with this deck. You're not going to do it every turn, certainly, but when you can, being able to then turn this into 2 more cards can really help push the momentum forward, which is great. Again, it can't block, so this is one of another card that can constantly be pitched like an Ironhide defense, or pitched early for just paying for items, then coming into it late game when you have a much bigger board state to work with, which is great. And the cheapest of all is Uprising. I don't know if this just has a much higher print run than some of the other Majestics, but I was pretty surprised when I saw this cheap of a price on TCG Player. So it has a lot of things going for it. It blocks for 3, which is very good for a non-attack action, and it buffs 4 damage. So it doesn't do that on the first card, but it gives it +1 over 4 Draconic attacks. And so that counts for all of your Aether Ash Wings, for any of your Draconic Illusionist attack action cards, and for any other dragons that you have in play. And so at most points in the game, I hope that we have 3 to 4 dragons out. And if we only have 3, then the first attack could still be a Draconic Illusionist attack action, which is great. And of course, playing it enables Go Again on all of the dragons. If you need it to block, great, it can block 3. All right, let's talk about some key cards of the deck. These key cards are mostly going to be the ones that we're running 9 copies of. So every single color of every single copy of every single pitch that we can. Let's dive in. First up, Rake the Embers. There's a beautiful mat out for this right now. I believe that was the September Armory kit. It might have been August. But if you haven't seen it before, the red version costs 1. You create an Ash token, and then you transform up to 3 Ash you control into Aether Ash Wings. And so you only want to play the red copies when you can get that full effect, just because these are so important to have in the deck for really flooding the board. But I like to have all the other pitch counts available just to constantly be creating Ash Wings. Very strong. And of course, it costs 1, so if you pitch a red, you'll create an additional Ash. So you can even fire off this red one for full value. If you only have 2 Ash at the start of your turn, you could create one by paying for this item, and it creates another Ash on its own. So really you can get its full effect if you only start the turn with 1 Ash officially. Next up is going to be Sweeping Blow. I love this card. It does not deal a lot of damage, but that's okay. It only costs 1. It has built-in Go Again. So this is a great card kind of on its own to push a little bit of damage. Whenever you attack with it, you create an Ash token. So once this card becomes an attack, so it has to go through a few different stages in the rules for that. Once it becomes an attack, it creates an Ash token, which is great. Again, built-in Go Again. So we want to constantly be using this card as an attack to create ash. And it costs 1, so if you're pitching a red to go along with this, then this effectively creates 2 ash tokens every time you use it. Again, as long as you're pitching a red. Now, the least important out of these 3 sections where we're playing the full suite of cards is Skittering Sands. Don't be afraid to block with this card early. It only blocks for 2, but when we're using it, it doesn't create an ash on its own. It doesn't cost anything, so you can't create an ash by playing it. You have to have ash already sitting there. You transform a single ash into an Aether Ashwing, and it gives +3 at red, +2 on yellow, or +1 on blue. So if you play the red version, you'll then have an Aether Ashwing that has 4 attack power for the turn. So that's really great to just push some quick damage, or force the opponent to block and get cards out of their hand, which is also helpful for us. There's Skittering Sands. Next up for the key cards, I think this is the last key card officially, is Red Lead the Charge. So again, if you've only bought Uprising, this is from a previous set from Arcane Rising. So it's a very cheap card, singles wise. It's a common rare, it's a common rarity rather. And so going and picking this up from your local game store, from a veteran player, or from an online retailer like TCG player is going to be dirt cheap, but it's critical to our success. So you play Lead the Charge, and then it has this floating effect. So the next time you play an action card with cost 0 or greater, so any card, gain an action point. Okay, so for example, if we play Lead the Charge and then we play like a Skittering Sands, we're going to end up with 2 action points. So that means when we're attacking with our dragons, if they destroy the first one with a popper, an attack value of 6 or greater with the block, then we'll still have an action point left over to restart the chain link and continue attacking with our dragons. So there's 3 in the deck. You want to get through games probably playing all 3 against the common opponents of like Viscerate, Briar, or Guardian. Most likely Phi isn't running too many poppers, but you never know these days. Next up, the dragons. First up is Necria. This is one of our 2 primary dragons of the build. Necria is going to ensure that our ash pile stays stocked. So if you haven't played with Necria too much, this is the dragon from the Demonastery. Whenever Necria deals damage, so when it attacks, or is dealt damage when it is attacked, put a -1 health counter on her and create an ash token. So every time it attacks, it's going to create an ash. If your opponent, let's say it's like Phi, decides to attack it with like a Kodachi, so Harmonized Kodachi for 1 will effectively do 2 damage to it. Another Harmonized Kodachi for 1 will bring that total damage up to 4 every time because it gets these -1 counters. And then the ninja opponent would only need to deal 2 more damage to it on its turn to kill it. Or if it's attacked for 6 from like a full-powered Anothos, then Necria goes away. But every single time it's attacked or does the attacking, it creates ash. So that's why Necria is very powerful. She does cost 3, but that's why we have deep blue in the deck for that reason, and a few blues in the list as well to help with that. Ovia. Now this is the dragon from Arya, a beautiful dragon mama. She's going to fuel our swarm as long as she can. She has a robust 6 health. She does only attack for 1, but you're not going to do any attacking with her unless you just know without a doubt that the opponent has no poppers in hand. She's just sitting there creating dragon babies, and that's great. We want her doing that as long as possible. Next up, Dromai. This is kind of an optional dragon. If you don't want to run Dromai, then don't. Pretty good stats on Dromai. Wonderful against decks that run a lot of poppers. Since he costs 0 to play, we kind of recommend him in all builds. This is the only other dragon I have in the list for like the full-powered Classic Constructed version. But you can see once per turn when Dromai attacks or leaves the arena, gain an action point. And so as soon as I attack with Dromai, I'm going to get that additional action point, just like the Lead the Charge combos. And that's going to let us just attack more frequently throughout the game. And hey, on those turns when you have an extra action point, if your opponent wants to pop 2 dragons that turn, that's fine. That means it's 2 poppers out of the deck and 2 cards out of their hand. I have no problem when I see that. It benefits them, benefits us. Hey, we all win. The last dragon in the list is Asvolai. So the perfect addition for the mirror match. Whenever Asvolai attacks, you may have him deal 1 arcane damage to up to any 2 targets. So in most games, you're just going to target one of those arcane damage points at the opposing hero, and the other one's just going to fizzle. It's just not going to do anything. But against another Dromai, you can pop 2 Aether Ash Wings every single time you attack with it, and you still have that 2 physical damage to target wherever you want. So that's great. It does help kind of push arcane damage, especially against opponents that aren't running Arcane Barrier against Dromai. It's great just to have that free damage every single turn. Now, let's talk about upgrades to the deck when you're ready to put some extra money into here. Crown of Providence right now is $150. There's not a lot of great helmet options other than this for Dromai. It's a fantastic legendary card out of Uprising. There's plenty of copies out there, but because it can be used by every hero in the game, the price is going to stay up there. I'm sure they go for cheaper on Facebook or on Discord regularly, but right now $150 for one of these bad boys. And these are all the cheapest prices for these. So these are all Rainbow Foil legendaries that I'm going to show to you right now. So Flamescale Furnace, again, Rainbow Foil. There is a more expensive Cold Foil option. Flamescale Furnace, $100. Now, in this particular iteration of the deck, I'm not using Flamescale Furnace's power that often. This is strictly an upgrade because of its blocking ability. Blocks for 2, 1 time for free, no problem. And it can block for 1 an additional time, but after you do that, because of temper, it'll be destroyed. But effectively, you're starting the game with 3 more health when you play Flamescale Furnace, and then 2 more health on top of that with Crown of Providence. So starting the game with 45 health is just very strong. Next up is Ghostly Visit in the arm slot. This is so good against the Guardians and even Briar, or anybody else you think is going to be popping a lot of your dragons. This thing is just going to slowly tick up counters, and then at the end of the game, if you can see they're probably out of poppers, you bring this thing in for like an attack for 10 or something, and you can really seal the game. Lastly, the quintessential illusionist piece is Phantasmal Footsteps. So you can see this is from an unlimited version of Monarch. For $180, the cold foil version is dropped in price to like $270-ish. The price for this is all over the place. I'm sure you'll see some sales for a lot less than this and a whole lot more than this, but it's sitting pretty around $180 right now. Next up, here's some additional options for you to consider. Some things that I run in my personal versions of this deck that I might be too spicy, so let's get the spicy one out of the way, and that's card draw. So I love this combination in decks that can afford the slots. Even like a lot of Runeblade combinations, I really like this, where you're playing High Striker. It says the next time an attack you control hits this turn, create 6 copper tokens. Normally I would play the yellow version of High Striker because it creates 4, which is the perfect amount for cash in to draw 2 free cards. But I'm playing red in this Dromai list in case it's the only red with Go Again in my hand to enable a dragon spree of attacks. So with cash in, you can destroy 4 coppers instead of paying its 4 cost to draw 2 cards. And of course, there's Go Again. And so I like being able to churn through more of my deck with these 2 options and really kind of get the game going in my favor. The other thing with the copper token, now it costs 4 to draw a card. A copper token does. I don't have a picture of it on the screen. And so if you're really desperate for Ash, you can pop a copper and just pitch away, my friend, and gain an Ash for the turn. If that's what it takes to get Necri on the field or something, do what you got to do. Next up is our Mirage, or kind of like illusionary tech for the turn for the deck. You have Mirage Eye and Passing Mirage. Now, both have a very similar effect that allows the first dragon attack or just the first illusionist attack each turn to lose and not gain Phantasm. So a way to kind of sneak in an attacking dragon without worrying about getting it popped. Lastly, the more damage option. You may have noticed in my list, I'm only running the cheap attacks. I don't have any attacks in the list that cost more than 1. But if you want to add more damage, certainly Ember Maw Centipede is the way to go. And of course, Pierce Reality is going to work for the first illusionist attack action card you play each turn. So a lot of those 1-costers, like Sweeping, can turn into a cost 1 for 5 attack if you have Pierce Reality in play. And if your opponent's worried about those attacks getting buffed, they may just target Pierce Reality and blow their whole attacking turn dealing with Spectra. So, upgrade your Blitz deck. These affordable options and compete at your local armory today. Thank you so much for watching. Hey, we're on the road to 500 subscribers, so don't forget to like and subscribe. Share the video out. I'll be sure to put the list in the description again. And if you want to see more budget deck lists, let me know. Let me know what hero you want to see, especially if you're a new player. One, let us know that you're a new player. We'll hit you up with all kinds of resources, and we'll help you build a nice budget-friendly deck. I'm a budget-conscious guy myself. I understand. Used to be a public school teacher. Totally understand. Anyway, let us know if you liked the video. Let us know if you have any questions. And happy Flesh and Blood playing.
Flesh and Blood Brothers.